Hi everyone. As you're probably familiar, I do a lot of video editing for the 2-Hour Track Challenge songs that I put out on YouTube. One of my favorite effects is the pixel sort effect, and I used this a couple times recently. Kings of the Desert was one of the more recent ones that I did, and I really, really loved the effect. I got a couple requests on how to actually do that effect, so I wanted to step through it in HitFilm Pro. Now, I'm using HitFilm Pro, which is the paid version of HitFilm. However, if you're using like Adobe After Effects or Adobe Premiere, I think you have this access to the same effect, so you should be okay there. So I'm going to move over into HitFilm Pro, and we can talk about the process of creating it. Okay, so here we are in HitFilm. I'm just going to create a default project, 1080p at 60 FPS. So I'm going to click Start Editing. The next thing that I need to do is I'm going to bring in an image and the audio. I'm just going to use a picture of the beach that I took a long time ago, and we can go with that. So we're going to go and create a composite shot just for the song in general. So let's just call it Song Visualizer. And we know that the length of the audio right here is 3 minutes and 16 seconds. So let's just put in 3:16 and move on from there. Okay, whoop, not 160. There we go. Boop. Okay, so in here we can add our image, and we're going to have to rename it to the background image. And I'm going to go step by step through this just in case somebody's not familiar with the process, but I'm just going to kind of take each step as it comes, and we'll figure it out. So I'm going to just resize it, make sure it looks the way that I want inside of the frame. It's a little off center, so I'm going to just... That's good enough. And then I'm going to add some basic effects just for color grading. So I'm just going to speed through this part because it's not really that interesting. Okay, so I wasn't really looking for something that looked realistic in this case. I kind of just want to have something that looks dreamy and ethereal. So let's stick with that for now. So we have our background. Let's import the audio file, which is nice and simple, right in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a song title. Now, we're not actually going to visibly see this right away, but we're going to use this as a template for masking other layers. So let's just take this text here, and I always spell apoapsis wrong, which is the name of this song, but there we go. And we will set up the text. Nothing fancy, just dump it in there, and that's good for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the visibility for this layer, and because we're going to use it as a key for masking later on. So even though it's hidden, we can still use this as a text key. So we'll just call it a text key for masking, and move on. So we're going to create a plane. It doesn't really matter what color because we're going to use this as the key, and we're going to add the Chroma Key effect, which will give us access to masking this out like that. Okay, so now it's stuck on black, so we're just going to call the color fill effect, and we can just change it to whatever color we want now. So I'm going to set this at 100% first of all, and then I'm going to set it to a darker purplish color because I think that that will fit well in this scene. There's a lot of this that's open to interpretation here, so feel free to deviate from this if you feel like something else would fit better. I'm going to add a glow to this as well to allow it to open up a little bit. The default, I think, is fine for this, and what we're going to do now is we're going to set this to color dodge, which gives it a nice glowy effect. Since layer order is a little important here, I'm going to move this to here. I'm going to call this song title. And now we can move on to the visualizer, which will be another plane. And we're going to add the audio waveform to this one. And again, we're going to go through and modify these settings quite a bit to make it suit our needs. So first of all, we need to set the audio itself to the song. So now we have that. Yay. After that, we're going to set the audio start to the edge of the screen and about 100 pixels up. And we're going to do that for the end as well. Also, I am going to go in and lower the volume of the actual audio before I forget, because that was incredibly loud and I apologize. So I'm going to just set this to -10. I would not do that for your project, but for the purposes of this project, I think it's necessary. So moving back into the audio waveform controls here, we are going to set the height to 50 and this to 20. And then we're going to set the color to something bright. We want something that kind of blends in with the background, because the pixel sorting effect takes columns. It captures data in strips, and it organizes the pixels in those strips by various effects like luminosity or how much red is in there, or transparency even. So it's important to understand kind of where you're going here. So I want to have something that fits very closely to what the actual background looks like. I want it to kind of fade in there, because the pixel sort will pick this up easier then. I'm actually going to make that a little darker. And I am actually going off of a written guide here. I did do this beforehand, and now I'm kind of redoing it for the purpose of this tutorial, just so you're not listening to me kind of hem and haw over settings. So I hope that's okay with you guys. So I am going to go in here and add a blur effect as well, because this should blur into the background. Because again, we're trying to sort this by pixels, so having it flow into the background is important. So that should be good for now. So I'm gonna close all this up, and I'm gonna name this visualizer, and we can move on to the next step. So we're gonna duplicate the actual text here and place it underneath the visualizer as well. And positioning in this is very important. We're going to, because what's going to happen is we're going to add some grades, and grades are basically just like a layer of effects that affect everything below where the grade is on this stack here. So in this one, I'm going to actually remove the glow and put in a blur, because I want what's happening underneath here to blend in with the background a little bit more. And now we're going to actually add that pixel sort grade. So we'll just do new layer, grade, and we're going to put it between the visualizer, or we're going to put it between the song title and the visualizer. What this does, it means that it's going to affect all of these layers. Anything in this will take the data from these layers and run it through the filters and then push it up to the rest of these layers. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab that pixel sort effect, which I love so very, very much. And you can see right away it does some crazy effects. But really what I want to do in this video is affect the clouds, not the ground. So I'm going to set the minimum brightness to something like this. You can kind of see how it's growing together. And then the max brightness, I want this to like have maybe some subtle effect, but not anything big. Also, the direction is important. I'm going to set this to 33 or -33 just to get a weird angle on that. And I think that this is kind of cool how this looks. So if we play this now, it looks kind of neat. I mean, it looks kind of neat. It's kind of cool, but it doesn't have the same kind of animated feel that the other thing did. So the trick of this is to add a layer of movement between the pixel sort grade and the rest of these layers down here. And what that layer of movement does is it basically injects noise into the system, so it feels like things are moving and flowing organically. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to add a second grade underneath the pixel sort. Oops, I should rename this pixel sort. And then I'm going to name this clouds, because that's what we're going to put in here. So we are going to go and get clouds and drop that in here. And right away it kind of breaks everything, which is fine. We can fix that easily enough. So the first thing in this is that the shape is too small. I want the clouds to kind of be big and unnoticeable. So I'm going to make this very, very large like this. And then another thing about this is you'll notice that it moves very quickly. So I want to lower the speed down to something like 15 or 10. So it just moves at a snail's pace. I think that that's very important because I don't want fast changes because that kind of messes up the pixel sort in general. The next thing we're going to do is grab the color dodge here, so we'll get our colors back, but now they're super blown out, and we definitely don't want that. So I think what we can do is we can darken it a little bit here, like that, and we can tune these colors kind of to taste. I think that grabbing just some slightly bright colors and then making these darks a lot less dark, I think making this like a brown color, and just kind of messing with the offset, trying to find something that works. And I think that is pretty much it in general. So now if we play this, it's pretty good. So another thing we can do is instead of just having the clouds being static, we can actually have them change over time, and that's using this seed function right here. So I can set and automate a change for this, and I want it to automate fairly quickly. So it'll roll between a lot of different things, and now you'll see, well, that might be a little too fast. Let's just set this to 500 then. That might still be a little too fast. Again, this is kind of to taste, so whatever works best for you. But just kind of having things like morph in and out is very, very cool and worth doing. And adding more motion like this is totally okay. Like if you wanted to go in here and automate a lot of this stuff, that might be something that you want to do. I know with the Kings of the Desert video, I actually automated quite a bit. And maybe you wanted to take this and automate the color over time so it gets darker. And make that a little darker like this. Not a big change, but sometimes the small changes are what you really want. And finally, I noticed that the text on the top here is a little kind of washed out, which might be the effect that you want, but I can always just go back up here, create another duplicate of this, and now it's a lot easier to see. So I think that's pretty cool. I'll have an example of this that when it's not kind of blurry during live rendering. I'll have an example of this at the end. But seriously, thank you so much for watching through this video. I hope that you found it useful and informative. I want to do more of these in the future because video editing, even though music is primarily what I want to do, video editing is also important as well. So consider liking and subscribing to this channel if you want to see more stuff like this in the future. Otherwise, one of the end cards will be a list of all of the 2-hour track challenges that I've done that include other ways that I've edited video to showcase just in general what you can do with HitFilm Pro. I think that it's a really, really cool piece of software. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.